Yo, what's up guys? On this channel, I do a video called Real World Reviews. You're actually watching one right now. In this type of video, I don't discuss specs at all, but I talk about how those specs impacts performance on how I use the phone. As a person who reviews phones, I have many phones rotating in and out of my pocket and SIM cards, but the one phone that always remains is the latest iPhone Pro Max. In this video, I'll break down how I use this phone as a content creator, a father, and as an average golfer. I'm Kevin the Tech Ninja, and welcome to my Real World Review. The iPhone 14 Pro Max isn't a big change from the 13, but the changes for me is what I've been asking for years. Not to say this phone is perfect. There are definitely a couple of things that I would like to change, and we'll talk about that shortly, but there's been a lot of good strides to make this phone as close to perfect as possible. There's a lot of jokes about the iPhones that I'm seeing, on and on and on, about it being the same year over year. And my argument is, does it need to change every single year? I think when you make such a great product, it's hard to adopt a new change so often, especially if the current one is so widely accepted. I feel the same thing about Samsung as well. I don't think they need to change design up. It's working and there isn't anything that stops it from being great. And I think this year's use of the dynamic island is a great change. You're getting rid of the notch and now you're adding this other element that actually is functional. Is it perfect? No, but it's the first iteration of it. So yeah, the phone still looks great. It looks just as good as it ever looked. And yes, the lens on the back are bigger. Some say it's starting to look silly. I don't think so. I think it fits the phone pretty well. Now, one of the first things I do with my phone is customizing and protecting. I do go with Apple Care Plus for that sense of security, knowing that if I crack the screen, I can definitely swap it out for only like $30. And I have a toddler. I also install a screen protector. The one I got from Spigen is great. Installation takes like 4 minutes and it's a perfect install every time. They're not sponsoring this video. I bought it myself, but it's great. And for cases, I love my Nomad case. The leather is just a great look. I love how patina's over time. It's just a solid everyday case. And it adds like a layer of like luxury and class because it's leather. And I think it's like kind of a good aesthetic. But if I need more protection, if I'm going out somewhere that I may drop the phone more, or if I'm like, doing something else, or I may have to hand the phone to my kid because he's going crazy, then I'll use a different case. And the case of choice is actually from dbrand. Dbrand is one of my sponsors. They're not sponsoring this segment, but the dbrand grip case is really good. You can customize the back of it by adding different skins if you want, or you can just go with the black on black. Now I did also toss on one of the skins on the phone too. I have the yellow one and it's like shining through the back of the case and it's a pretty cool look. Although I do love the actual color of this phone, if you do want to change the phone up, you can get a different skin. But anyways, everything I talked about is linked down below. So hit the links, check them out. Some of the links may be affiliated and it helps the channel. Off the bat, when using the 14 Pro Max, I don't notice anything different when comparing it to my 13 Pro Max in the hand. But the always on display to me is a huge improvement. It's a feature that I really missed often when I go back to the iPhone. A lot of Android devices has this. Now what Apple did with the always on display is pretty awesome. I love seeing a notification pop in when the screen is off. It's very subtle. It just slides in at the bottom and it's just sitting there waiting for you. I can quickly tell if it's something I need to interact with, or I can let it wait. But if it's something I do need to go into, I can pick up the phone, I can tap the notification and then just swipe up and it takes me right into it. There's also some pretty cool widgets that I have on the lock screen, like my calendar app of choice, which is Time Page. I have Flighty, which tracks my next flight, and also Carrot, which gives me this really cool weather widget, which has the high and low, and that's all I really care about. And that's my default setup, but I also use focus modes as well. So if I'm using my sleep focus, I have a blank screen with no widgets at all, and I have a work focus that just focuses on meetings and a to-do list. One additional area that is different on the screen is the brightness. I never thought the iPhone 13 was dim in direct sunlight, but the added brightness on the 14 is absolutely insane. It gets so bright in the direct sun that it makes the 13 look dim. It is something I've noticed right off the bat. It's truly hard to show in video, but in person, it makes me feel like I'm using the screen inside. I don't have to like duck in the shade or hold my hand over the phone to see the content. It looks really good no matter what. And then the dynamic island. I think right now we're seeing it in a very limited sense, but pretty soon more apps apps are gonna have access to it. So like imagine you're waiting for your Uber ride and the Uber status will be sitting up in this dynamic island so you don't have to pop into the app. There's a lot of little nuanced things that are going to happen with dynamic island really soon, and I'm sure it'll continue to get better. But right now it's limited, but I think it's better than the notch because it's actually useful. Now, the main selling point for me and why I always go Pro Max over the standard Pro, even though I like the size of a standard Pro, it's just battery life. Battery life on the regular Pro just wasn't enough for me, especially because I travel so much. What isn't nice though, is that it's actually a downgrade from last year. On my 13 Pro Max, I would have around 30% of battery life at the end of the day. Now I'm at around 20 and sometimes 15%. Maybe it's an iOS 16 thing, or maybe it's an always on display thing. I'm not sure, but it's been about 3 weeks. It's good enough for me still, but it's a downgrade, and you don't wanna have downgrades when buying a new phone. Now, speaking of chargers, Anker does make some solid chargers for whatever config you need. Now, I do buy the ones that have multiple ports, and they're amazing for travel, but they also have a standard one too that can quick charge as well. I'll have those links down below too if you wanna check those out. Once again, the links can be affiliated, but this is not a sponsored spot, just what I actually use. Now, I'm big using Apple Health with my Apple Watch or my Oura Ring. I have insights for my stress level, sleep, and activity, or lack thereof, and it's nice to have it all in one spot. Now, Samsung also has a pretty good health component, and their watch is really good, and I might like it better than the Apple Watch, but there's less apps and hardware that feeds into it, and it feels a little lackluster. And I can even send Apple Health information to my doctor, so instead of going to appointments, I can send him this information and he can provide things over my chart. But what's even bigger than that is I have access to my dad's records, which has provided me a peace of mind knowing I know exactly what's going on when he goes to the doctors. No more asking him for a status update. It's right there in the charts, and I can find those right in Apple Health. It just links directly to my healthcare provider. Those things transcends a phone, but it begs the question for me, like, what if I want to leave Apple? I'd lose access to those things that are very important to me. So that's one huge thing that keeps me with the Apple ecosystem, for better or worse. This year's camera system has gotten better. I do find that the iPhone's camera is the best package all around. The video mode, the lenses, portrait mode, all those settings combined makes it really good and very compelling. And now this year, they added 4K to cinematic camera at 24 frames per second. I'm gonna show some clips of it, but honestly, if you click on my iCloud links below, on a device with HDR, you can truly see how good it looks. I have used this camera as an extra camera for my YouTube videos now, and nobody even notices. It's that good. And as a content creator, that's huge for me. Being able to travel with just my phone and I can still make really good video, that right there is worth it. There is now a RAW setting on the camera, which allows you to take 48 megapixels, which is really nice to use in difficult situations. I'll only use this if I know I'll edit the photo at a later time, but it has came clutch for me. I have taken some really good shots and I've edited those photos to use them as thumbnails. You also have an additional focal length for the camera. You now have the 2x, which sits between 1x and 3x. So you have 2x right in between. And I find 2x to be a really nice sweet spot when I'm taking portrait photos, when I don't want to zoom all the way in and back up 5 feet. I find 2x to be just a really nice intermediate for me, and it's been working out great. You also have action camera mode, which essentially takes away the shakes and jitters when you're doing video. So example is like running after my kid or doing anything that has a lot of movement and a lot of motion. Action camera mode is just a great feature and it works really, really well. And I'm very impressed with it. Now I use my phone for work. I've talked about that a lot. But when I do have time, I love to pop in to play some games. And gaming on iOS is super smooth. I use Apple Arcade, which gives me access to some great games. I love What the Golf, Tetris Beat, and also Super Stickman 3. And I do love playing Rocket League Swipe and Battle Prime as well. Those are games that are great. And gaming on this iPhone and the last couple iPhones is just very smooth. And you know, iOS gaming is a really nice alternative if you don't want to buy a Switch or a Steam Deck, anything like that. You know, gaming on the phone now has become really good, and you pair that with great battery life and you have yourself an awesome gaming device. I know a lot of these gaming apps require you to be online to play, but the Apple Arcade games do not require you to be online to play. So it's really nice to know when I'm traveling I can play these games on the airplane if I need to. As you guys know, my cell phone is the hub for me and all my content. I use my cell phone to shoot my social media videos online, and I also use my phone to edit these videos. I use an app called Caption to add captions onto these videos. You know, I do so much from my phone, and I think I use it to its maximum capabilities. So for me, my phone is the most important tech item that I own. And that's why having a tool that can last all day, do everything I need it to do, and also I have that integration to health and all those things is extremely important for me. All in all, there's no wrong way to use a cell phone. Some get a Pro just for the status symbol, and others, like me, uses it to its full extent. This is how I use my iPhone 14 Pro Max every day. It's a staple to my workflow for work, but also when I'm off, I have a very capable camera. And when I'm making decisions for my family's health, it's a tool to figure out the best decisions possible. So for me, it was super easy to just drop this phone into my life because I've been using it the exact same way for so many years. It doesn't do anything differently as the other phones, but it does everything just a little bit better, besides battery life. Anyways, guys, I'm Kevin the Tech Ninja. Have a wonderful day. Hit subscribe, and I'll holler at you folks later. Peace.